Hello, this is Stuart from Hear Me See Me podcast, and today I've got an amazing man, and I've met him before. We've worked together, but I've never had time to have a real good, proper conversation with him. So today I'm going to be talking to Mr. Johnnie Sapong. How you doing, sir?
All right, mate. Nice to see you, Stuart. Thanks for having me.
Nice to have time for a chat, isn't it? You know, like
Absolutely.
it was. We did meet a while ago, and it was a bit of a manic day. Um, but yes, it's going to be good to have a proper conversation and see how things are, because you're stateside, aren't you?
I'm in LA at the moment, yeah. And yeah, I mean, California, lovely state that it is. We live probably about, I don't know, it's about a 30 minute drive to the beach. We're over in the valley. And yeah, it's the great outdoors. Really, I've got 4 kids, so the kids like to be outdoors and they do a bit of surfing and all that kind of stuff. It's just bonkers at the moment because the boys are used to playing football and doing sport and all that kind of stuff, and because of COVID, everything's been cancelled.
Because I listen to a lot of Joe Rogan, and
Right.
he's like, because he was based there and he's moved.
Yeah.
He's out because he says about how difficult it is, and that the people who govern, the governors of California, are not helping the people. What's it like from your aspect?
You know what? I kind of sort of feel like, I don't know, like California as a state, to me, has always felt like it's been an island anyway. Even though it's part of the United States, it's just the way that people's attitudes are and the approach, and living off the land, being sustainable, thinking about ecology, climate, all these kind of things. And with COVID, it's sort of like it's the first time I've ever seen like the place actually stop. Like stand still physically, like, it's a city that generally, or I call it like a town in the middle of a desert. Do you know what I mean? Really, more than anything else. And the functionality, and what I mean by that is that, London or New York, you got that fast pace, it's 24/7, and, people actually walk around in the streets. Do you know what I mean? Whereas here, everything's so spread out that really you're on a car or on a bike or using the barely there public transport. And I think since COVID, I mean, as it's done for the whole world, it's just brought everything to a stop. And it's a bit like, oh right, okay, so like I go and I do hair for like photo shoots and all that kind of stuff, and even as simple as Stu going in and I got a good dear friend here who runs a couple of salons called Salon Benjamin. I work alongside him and give him a hand doing a bit of education with the juniors. So it's a bit like good cop, bad cop, but it's a laugh. Do you know what I mean? But the point is as you were saying about the governor and local government, across the board, the government are just all fighting with each other, right? Yeah. So it's like, okay, you can open, but you can have 25% capacity. So, you got a salon, you got 25 chairs in there. You do the maths, you got the stylist in there, you got the colorist, right? And basically your chair in principle costs this much, right? To rotate, to run, whether it's an hourly rate or like 45 minutes or 30 minutes, whatever that is. And all of a sudden someone's gone, oh no, you can't, like it's going to, you're going to be infested. It's going to be this, it's going to be that. Not to mention that actually, we've not been doing this from day dot with the hygiene and safety. And that's what I'd say to you is that, I feel a little bit like I'm sort of trapped in a sense. So it's like being in an open prison, maybe in some essence. But the reality is that, we had to get out of town for a couple of days just because, the boys, we were in the middle of the sort of school holidays, so homeschooling was out. You know, we got in the car and drove out a couple of hours into the desert, Joshua Tree. And a friend of my wife's had a sort of retreat thing there. We rented the place out, and it was me and the 4 boys, my missus and our dog, right, in the desert. We were only there 4 days, Stu. It was fucking brilliant. Excuse my French. But it was bloody brilliant to just be like, and you know, being out in the desert, getting that sense of nature, totally kind of like, it was like a refreshing moment. Do you know what I mean? It's like, oh, you know, we sort of feel like we're not necessarily just trapped somewhere where we're never going to be able to leave again and stuff. And I think that mentality doesn't help because I'm the eternal traveler, you know, like Gypsy. You know, I'm used to being on the road all the time. You know, when we met, I think and we were doing haircuts for homeless during Fashion Week, right? And the British Beauty Council were launching something, and it was the usual bonkers, right? Like nutty. But that element, I feel like, was always like, you know, I'm not about control. I like to kind of actually feed off energy, feed off people, feed off, you know, vibes and stuff. And this is something that's made, like, you know, the kind of aspect of understanding what my mental health well-being is all about as well, you know. So yeah, sorry to ramble on, mate, but I'm like, it goes through waves, you know. I spoke to a dear friend of mine and someone who I collaborated with sometimes, and she'd, you know, runs a global business, and, you know, one of her offices is in Paris, and, you know, she basically needed to be back in Paris for, you know, a big meeting, and it's like, you know, you haven't been able to do like whatever you need to do to run your business, right? When you're a business person, you have to be in places, and it's all very well doing things over Skype, and you know, me and you are having a lovely conversation because we've got modern technology, right? But she made a really like valid comment, and it was something along the lines of the fact that I'm a sociable person, and I like to be sociable, and currently in the state of California, being sociable is not allowed. So I was like, love, I get where you're coming from. So, like, you know, for us all across the board, hairdressers everywhere, right? We're about being sociable, you know. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's a big part of our lives, right? And
DNA, you know.
Yeah.
What we are.
Yeah. It's a kind of like, and if someone asks you that question and you sort of think, you know, I could definitely go through moments when I'm like, oh, I'm really all right for a chat now. Like, you know, get the headphones on and sort of take yourself into a zone and not be there. But like, it's tough, Stu. It's tough. And I you know, I was only saying to someone yesterday, like, as things go on, as you're trying to sort of start trying to work out like how many days there are in a week again, what formats, what, you know, and setting yourself boundaries and, like, you know, goals at least, because like it's the same as, you know, the windows. Like when you were texting me the other day, and I kept saying to my wife, I was like, oh, right, so when I do these calls and I'm having this meeting and I've got to do this, like our house is like a college campus now, and like no one's at college yet, but it just feels like that, and it may as well be the college campus plus the dorms. And then it's like, you know, Karen's got to do yoga in a bathroom now because like that's the warmest place you can get a room, right? Then I'm like in one of the bedrooms, and then, you know, the kids have got, you know, some are in bedrooms and they've like pretty much put signs up on the door when they're kind of like, oh, I'm in the middle of a science test and stuff. And then you've got to go and sit in on some things because sometimes you're having like client, like teacher, parent conversations because like something, you're getting all these text messages on the side going, oh, you know, Jude has not done his homework this week. And it's like, well, Jude didn't have any internet this week, so he couldn't do any homework. But like that. So it's challenging. Let's just say that, to say the least. And yeah, I mean, people are people are leaving left, right, and centre, and people are taking options and going, well, maybe it's a cheaper cost of living if I move to Arizona, or I move to Texas, or I move to, wherever it may be, Kansas. And I'm sort of like, yeah, okay. I don't know whether I'm getting I'm going to get a wagon, Stu, and sort of like, come on, kids, come on, love. We're going to be, homesteaders, and we're going to move across the country. I'm not quite there yet, but, I'll ask Millie about that one. Maybe she'll give us a bit of advice on that one.
You'll get a full itinerary and breakdown.
Of course. There'll be places where we'll be able to, be quite profitable with services and stuff. Do you know what I mean?
We've got to mention Millie, because we both love her dearly, and she's just a force.
Absolutely.
And I can't say enough about I don't think people are realising how hard she's worked over in Britain, like the last few months, because our industry's been assaulted by it all, and it changes from week to week to week, and she's just been there, her and all of the Beauty Council, just keeping government, and they've got to start taking us seriously. Because they still see us as a little niche craft.
But this is the thing, we in the craft, right, as part of it, as hairdressers, makeup, beauty therapists, entrepreneurs, artisans, it's a collective of people that what's really funny is, in most conversations, when you were in the pub, when you were at a dinner, or at a party or whatever, what was the conversation about? Oh, he's a hairdresser. Oh, what can you do with my hair? What can you and in any sort of sense or line of engagement? I remember years ago, I did a project with GQ. David Bailey basically shot a politician's issue, right? Every single one of those politicians, whether we went to Downing Street, right, for instance, or they came to the studio, loved every moment of it. Getting your hair done, getting a bit of makeup, like having David Bailey take your portrait, like. But the actual thing and the way that they're talking about it is as if like we're just like fifth class citizens or something. Do you know what I mean? And it's the whole thing where people don't really truly have any kind of like respect for themselves before they start on stuff like that. And the wonderful thing about Millie is she's selfless. Do you know what I mean? And she's all about the fact that actually she's got passion about something that she truly believes in, and power to her. And thank you for sort of being the voice, right? Which we're all kind of like praying every day, right? That people can actually get their heads around the fact that this is really important. It does mean something to all of us that are involved, right? But it's also that thing where people get a notion of something where, in some senses, these experiences can be life-changing for people, right? And it's the notion of just having the true appreciation and stuff. Because it's one thing turning around and saying, okay, do you stand up and like give thanks every day for the hard work that people are doing, but it's also about the acknowledgement, is it not? And I think that acknowledgement of being able to turn around and say, well, actually, someone being able to go and get their hair done, right? Going to get their nails done, going to get a facial, the simplicity around what that means is still going back down to engagement. It's still going down to socializing. It's still going down to giving me something to sort of feel good about in myself, the element of self-confidence. And also, you know what? We like to laugh, Stu. Come on. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Life's too short. We like to laugh, don't we?
Yeah.
And it makes a lot of difference. And I think, when we can, no doubt, like, get in there, like I can't think of any other profession where actually the whole thing is that's one side of things where it comes like, you know, smiles are free, aren't they? Do you know what I mean? And the jokes and the laughs and the camaraderie and that whole aspect of just actually believing, you know, you see it, you know, like with haircuts for homeless. People being able to come in to a room, feeling intimidated, right? Not sure. And, you know, after 10 minutes, actually, it's a comedy show, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? And the things that one is sensitive about or is able to draw out of people, but also with the notion that, you know what, sometimes people just want to come in. They don't really want to chat that much, right? And, you know, at the end of it all, I'm here, you're here, they're here, we're here. It's all, it's an exchange, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? And I think that's where, you know, Millie, you know, gets it from the bottom of her heart, from wherever the angle is. And I think that it's you know, it's admirable, makes me proud. And I think it's also that thing where you're like, okay, if you're not going to listen, then I'm still going to tell you and I'm still going to share with you. So, like, you know, and that's what it takes. It takes guts. It takes, you know, the big cojones, as they say, right? You got to be like golden balls, right? Yeah.
I mean, from both aspects. I mean, people expect it, and they say, "Oh, when we do the haircuts for homeless," they say, "Oh, it must be so sad," and you hear so sad. I go, "Yeah, it is," but I must get across to you how the joy and the happiness and the laughter and the camaraderie when we go in these places, because people are broken down to what's most important, you know, and it's this pure, like, a pure companionship that you get that you don't
Totally.
day life, you know.
Oh, absolutely. But I think it's those connects, and the thing that you kind of realize through a lot of experiences is that, you know, people want to talk, people want to communicate, like, and it's not a given. Do you know what I mean? It's like, you know, we're hairdressers, right? We're used to like being sort of like mouth almighties. Do you know what I mean? And in an aspect, there's others that, like, you know, you put them in front of a group of people and they don't want to say like anything. Like, you know, I was always like the worst. Like, you know, when we were doing like platform stage stuff, like, and I'd always be just thinking, actually, I'm thinking about what I was doing with that piece of hair, and now I'm supposed to tell you what I'm doing with that piece of hair. So I'd be much better like having a co-compare, you know, so like you could get on with it. And like years working with like Millie and that, like when we used to work for Aveda, and it would be hilarious because you'd be out in some, like, you know, city in Cincinnati or something, and be on a stage, and I'd be like, right, okay, what am I going to say here now? Because I haven't even like remembered that thing. All I can remember is, yeah, it was minimal graduation, but now I was doing a reverse with something. And if I had someone there with me, you could just go, oh yeah, so Johnny, what is it that you're going to do today? And you'd be like, brilliant, like, okay, it's a little bounce. And I still remember to this day, like, you know, being on a stage at Radio City Hall, being able to see the likes of sort of Millie and like Neil Moody, I think, was sitting in the audience, right? That, and, you know, like, you spot people, you know, and you go, shit, like that. Like, it's really real and stuff. And they were kind of like, cooey, you'll be fine, that sort of thing. And I'm like thinking, stop it. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's funny. It's
about that, and people forget because they only really associate me now with homeless centres and things like that.
Yeah.
But I've owned a salon for 30 years, you know.
Yeah.
And like what we said about the importance of it, of hairdressing, you cannot be a busy salon on a Saturday. You know, like once it, all the column, you know, like all the chairs are full, the people are waiting. You know, it's like a buzz, isn't it? You know,
it's a total vibe. It's the buzz. It's the energy. It's that thing where you sort of feel like you know, I mean, the people that get it or have similarities to that kind of environment are like, you know, it's like running a full restaurant, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? With all your covers in that thing and the turnover and that vibe. And it's the floor, it's the theatre. You know, that space is like with anything. And, you know, you're running a full team, you're running a busy salon, and it is that energy. And like, of course, you're taking in everyone's emotions at the same time as taking in like waves of joy, sadness, look, from wherever. And I think that is something that is definitely like, why wouldn't you be missing it? What, you know, and it's the same for the clients walking into those environments. You know, I think that when we talk about that, it's a vibe, it's an energy, and people kind of enjoy being in that as much as, like, you know, you've got 14 clients today, and you know you've still got to fit in Mrs. So-and-so and Mrs. So-and-so because they're going to overlap and they shouldn't be sort of like in the same area as each other because of whatever reason. And here we go. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It's bloody brilliant. Exactly. Take her in under the dryer. It'd be good because then she won't be able to see anything.
I mean, and that's what troubles me. And you know, and what I really want to do is, you know, I think it's so important that we get all the help we need.
Yeah.
Because as with restaurants and salons and that, you know, over the last, they used to be sort of on average run about 20-30% profit.
Yeah.
The last 5 years, the bulk of salons in the UK, not the top restaurant, but the bulk of salons will be probably only running on 5-10% profit.
Right.
You take away 40% of their cover or their, you know, their unit.
Yeah.
It can't go on, you know. They must allow us to keep going. I see so many fatalities coming with that.
Right.
You know? Right.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, you know, like mine went after 30 years because the landlord doubled the rent and there was no leeway, and it was already,
there's no room for movement. Basically, you're kind of like, no, but you get crushed, don't you?
That's to people out there. So I think people really need to support their salons, their local salons, and you know.
I think so. I think that whole aspect of actually supporting local businesses, and it becomes like not centralized, but it becomes about community again, doesn't it? And that's the thing that I think, you know, in essence, okay, we understand what the spirit is, and you know, the spirit can be infused, and it doesn't mean that it isn't something that isn't coming from all around you, in essence. But when you kind of look at it in that way, and that's what I kind of sort of mean about that, what I see in, like, say, California, for instance, is it is quite interesting when you do get out of like LA or something, and you're for instance in Joshua Tree, you know, it's a desert community, but it's a community that people are looking out for each other, and you can kind of see that sense of something. And I mean, I don't know, I think about the fact that, you know, when the lockdown first happened, locally people were communicating with each other. You know, like your neighbour would be not necessarily knocking on your door, but he might have put a note through or left it on your mailbox, and then there was an email that people could kind of, like, you know, if you needed something, or you were stuck, or you were in trouble. And I think that sense of the everyone kind of knows each other in the community, and it's like, you know, what you were saying there, right? When we all worked in shops or run shops or own shops or have that thing, you kind of know everyone on your block generally. Do you know what I mean? And it's like you're kind of all in it together. Normally, if it's a you know, a residential property or a commercial property, depending on the neighborhood, sometimes the same landlords own all the properties on the block, right? And it's this kind of thing where, and sometimes in that sense, like, they don't give a flying, like you know, about anybody, right? and that in some senses does kind of sort of feel like you're dealing with the government, you know, like in the same guise, because in essence they are the kind of like overseer, aren't they? So, you know, if they're looking at it from angles and looking at it where, you know, on the levels of us being able to kind of actually maintain things, like grow things, you know, that for someone who was thinking about that opportunity now, and like, you know, don't get me wrong, Stu, you see it everywhere. People are thinking about going and taking that step, taking that chance. Like, oh, I could go and set myself up, you know, and get a studio, and like, you know, I'll be able to do my clients because we can't open a salon right now, or however, and that's the sort of mentality which is fantastic and brilliant, but if it's taken away from one to provide for the other, in the end, it's just going to all be shit, isn't it? Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Himself, and I think you got a very valid point. I'm sure I was ambling on about something like that some time ago with like, you know, when you're talking that the Fellowship of Hair, or you're talking to, you know, the HABA, or like all these governing bodies, even with education. Like, so when we're talking about teaching an apprentice, is the apprentice ever learning about business? Not really. Not really. Do you know what I mean? And come on, Stu, on levels, we're talking about that thing where it comes down from anywhere. Like if a young person is learning about a skill and a craft, right, they would benefit from understanding about business as well, in essence. And it's also about the same thing of thinking, like, you've got a dream, and why wouldn't you dream to be living in your neighborhood and put a shop on your high street? If there's already one there and you're already doing that, there's opportunities and room. Yeah. But it's also having the aspects and having the understanding of how to navigate this, right? And also that's another side of things where you're, you know, of course you're dealing with local councils, you're dealing with government, you're dealing with you know, entrepreneurial landlords, right? And you know, everyone's up against it. I think that's the thing right now is you know, the government and the mentality of government is very much like, oh, well, you know, maybe you'll be able to retrain. Maybe you'll be able to do this or do that. And it's a bit like, come on.
I don't know if you saw, but in the British press, they had this thing, and it was it's about the arts, and it was arena, and it's like you can retrain, and horrendous, you know. My daughter's just spent 3 years at uni, come out with a first, you know.
Brilliant. Congratulations.
Media. And she's working shop, you know, because there's still died. But she's still lucky enough, she's just got a couple of things coming up. But the idea to put the, you know, to squash people's dreams, say, oh, you know, it was.
But that's exactly it, right? The whole thing is like, you know, I think whatever the scale and however we feel, that idea of just stepping on your dreams, because actually it doesn't matter. Oh no, that's fine. And it's very much like a sort of computer says no, right? You know, you're going to go in and type your name in, and you put your name in. What you know, profession? Oh no, okay. You know, and it's a bit like being, I don't know, like in the 5th year at school, and not really kind of being challenged or not seeing anything that you really feel floats your boat, and you sit down with a careers teacher who sort of goes, right, yeah, but maybe sort of says, oh yeah, okay, army or plumbing or do you know what I mean? And it's like, oh, you're really quite academic. Maybe you should go to medical school or law school. Okay, next. Yeah. But at the point that you make engagement, I mean, I was a right little shit. So my careers teacher was brilliant, Miss Price, I remember. And she was brilliant because actually what she used to do was that she liked a bit of jazz and she was really into art history. So, you know me, I'd just go in and talk about, you know, Picasso or something because I was interested in Picasso that week. But what it drew out from her was the fact that there was other things out there. It didn't mean that like because you were thinking in your head you wanted to go to art school and your parents didn't think that was like, you know, going to be a fruitful like engagement for life, which they were absolutely right. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't necessarily going to be fruitful, but maybe it was going to be inspiring, Stu, or something. So again, you're, eh?
Where was that? Where was you brought up?
I was brought up in West London, South Acton. I was kind of, yeah, I was born in Queen Charlotte's, which was, at that time, it was Stamford Brook. And then it moved over to sort of Hammersmith, so right by Scrubs, Wormwood Scrubs and all that. So yeah, Acton boy, you know, both parents from West Africa, Ghana. So, you know, dad's an accountant, mum's a chef.
Yeah.
Their son was going to have the, you know, my mum was like, you're not going to go in the kitchen. That's not going to happen. And I'm like, what do you mean, mum? I'm having a great time coming here doing like odd jobs and, you know, being a kitchen porter on my school holidays or whatever, weekends and stuff, me and my busy mate. You know, she was like that. She goes, yeah, this is not going to be your future. I know you're just getting a bit of back money in your back pocket. And like, so, you know, you'd be there lunchtime, sneaking out to try and have a little cheeky fag and stuff. And like, not making sure your mum didn't see you, but mum's best mate used to have like, you know, what was it? The hundreds or whatever, Super Kings or something. You'd always be nicking fags off her when she'd put her penny up or something like that. But the beauty of that was that I think it was about being able to understand what your strengths and your weaknesses are, but engagement, people, you know, like I always used to just be like in awe of the fact that, you know, my mum could hold like court in a room and like, you know, you're basically serving in a canteen, right? You know, and you've got all these guys like she used to work in a building over in Isleworth, Great West Road. It was a Gillette's, the big Gillette's factory there, but she was working in the thing where they would deal with all the, you know, the bosses dealing with all these deals for whatever. Like nowadays, I would imagine that it's the sort of place that, you know, you go for a meeting because you were meeting the copywriter and this one to do a new ad for a razor blade or whatever. You know, like that kind of thing where she was dealing with all the silver service and stuff. And so when you know, her boy and his mate turn up to do like, you know, summer jobs, casual labour, right? You know, and I think we were getting like 100 quid a week or something like that. Well, whatever it was kind of like great because you were like 15 or something. And she would say, she'd introduce like us, and then other people would go, oh, this is like, you know, Connie's boy. And, you know, he's like, you know, and he's going to be a future whatever. And, you know, like you're standing there thinking, and then you'd have a conversation with like one of her mates, and they'd be like, what are you going to do then? I'm going, I don't think mum and dad know, but like, I'm going to art school. Like that. You know what I mean? And you'd be like, kind of like thinking that it was all really groovy. She sat me down one day and she said, yeah, I don't think your dad's going to be too sort of into the fact that you're talking about going to art school and telling everyone you're going to art school. I've spoken to Spencer, your mate, and he's going to join the Marines. Like that. And I was like, yeah, because he's just fucking idiot. But anyway, like, yeah, but the brilliant thing was that my mum, behind it all, when I sat down and I sort of said to her, look, like, if you lot are not going to support me, like, you know, mum and dad are not going to support me, you know what I'm like, and, you know, I just going to, like, do what I feel is going to keep my heart in the right place. So I said, okay, that, you know what, I'm going to stay on at school, do my A-levels, right? So I went off on a what was it, post O-levels, pre-A-levels, little holiday sojourn somewhere, and I ended up being a golf caddy for like 6 weeks or something. It was great. I come back, and I'm at school. And when I started in the sixth form, it was really interesting because a friend of mine's sister used to work at Morton Brown. She was like the art director there or something. And she was also in a band, right? So it was this whole kind of thing. So I think it was probably a little bit of a crush that I had. Like this lady was like, you know, in a band. She was like a hairdresser, and we could go around to like I was friends with her younger sister, so I'd be around her house all the time because, like, you know, they had written really good records and they were getting things in from America, and like her mum was like a total kind of brilliant, laid back. I wouldn't call her a socialist, but I'd say she was about the people, and she was kind of like, she was about being sociable, and there was an air of just like, you know, I remember sitting down one day and the sister sort of said to me, she said, what do you reckon? Do you think like you fancy like, you know, coming and being my assistant for like the holidays or whatever? And I was like, well, I'm working at my mum's at the moment, like as a, you know, as a porter or whatever. And I goes, and that pays me this a week, but maybe I'll come and like sort of give it a try. Stu, probably after about 3 hours of being in a, you know, West End salon where my eyes kind of just were popping out of my head every single step that I made, I think I just was like, right, this is it. I think I found I found my calling. Not a Scooby of what I'd be doing or what I was embarking on or what I was even thinking. And stuff. And what was brilliant though was that like throughout the years, like, you know, when you were like at school doing work experience, you know, I had a couple of mates who had hair salons. You know, one of them had a place in Kensington Market, someone had a place on the King's Road, and so it was something that had always been there, but I didn't really think about it as a, oh, like I'm going to go and do this as a job. It was more like you just went and hung out at the barber shop or the hairdressers because your mates owned it, or like, and if someone turned around and said, oh, well, can you do a bit of sweeping up and making some tea? And the best one was like, you know, especially when I started working in the West End, it was like, you know, you just take the client's dog for a walk or go and put money in the meter. All the jobs that you could find that meant that actually you were providing a service because you weren't quite there yet in terms of, like, you know, doing a blow dry or cutting hair or, you know, and as that started to build up, you're finding a happy balance between it. And I think that was such a great, like, sort of like eye-opening experience to be able to kind of actually realize that it was about people. It was about the engagement of people, and it was about, you know, like the fact that you could engage and just kind of like make someone's day that bit better. And sometimes you kind of also realize that, you know what, some people just didn't want you to make them feel better. They wanted you to give them a haircut.
Yeah.
Or they wanted to be able to sound off at you. Do you know what I mean? So you were there as a sponge. And that's okay as well. It's kind of like, you know what, that's kind of what we are in a funny sort of way. You know, hairdressers, there's a level where it's like, you know, I'm not a certified doctor, but I guess that, you know, I've had to learn how to appreciate and negotiate feelings, be sensitive or understand that. And then, you know, hopefully the wife's not listening. You know what I mean? It's kind of like that one where you kind of have to sort of do it full circle, didn't you? Everywhere in all aspects, you know?
Yeah, that was so funny. Like your beginning of hairdressing was exactly the same as mine.
Oh, really?
I was supposed to go to college, and
yeah.
then I about this girl when her older sister was an hairdresser in a local hairdresser. I fancied her rotten, you know, like, and then it was just, I just
brilliant.
thought, I'm going to go work there. It was exactly the same. And then I couldn't get a job in the one she was in, so I had to get their other place.
Okay.
But as you say, the minute I got there, it was just, it fitted me, you know, and this sliding doors moment, I don't know where I would have gone if I'd have gone to college and done the other
Oh,
stuff.
totally. No, but you know what's really funny, Stu, is that I had a couple of mates who ended up going to art schools and you know, different art schools. And what was really funny was when I started working in the West End, they were kind of like around because, like, you know, one of them was at Slade and then someone else was at Goldsmiths. Later on, someone else was at St. Martin's and stuff. So they were all in that kind of thing. So it was really great because I could turn up in the common room at college and most of the people thought that you went there because you were there that much. But you were actually looking for models for haircuts. And there was another dance one. What was it? I want to say Lambda or one of them. There was a Laban. There was a dance school, and I kind of got models out of there as well. And so it's that thing where you kind of realise that in a weird kind of way, there was part of it that I probably wasn't officially supposed to be at any of those sites, but you kind of like you had your own form of graduating through that. Do you know what I mean? And at the same time, you know, you were making inroads in other areas and stuff.
Yeah. Where did you go and work from there? From college?
From Morton Brown, I was at what was Morton Brown? So Morton Brown, when I left Morton Brown, I went to a place called Splinters, which was in Maddox Street, and it was basically you know, they were the gurus of black hair, basically. You know, I'd say late 70s throughout most of the 80s, pioneers really. Winston Isaacs was the founder, and Winston was like brilliant. I mean, it was the sensibility of listening and watching someone play with hair. Do you know what I mean? And just kind of infuse that whole passion. And yeah, it was something that, you know, I was like, well, I'm learning about hair. I want to learn everything. And actually, do you know what? I want to be able to do my mum's hair and my aunties and all that kind of stuff. So, like, I think I was sitting in the upstairs above the, what was it, staff room at Morton Brown, and there was a black lady who worked in the office, and she said to me, she said, oh, she said, how long have you been here? When did you start, sort of thing? And she was chatting away, and, you know, like you do. And then she said something to me. She just said, have you ever heard of Splinters? And I was like, is it the place? Is it the hairdressers that's like right near where Vogue is? That blah, blah, blah. And I'd only known it because I had a couple of friends who, we used to play football together. There were two brothers, and both of them used to go and get their hair like comped, get relaxed over there, right? And so I was kind of like just curious and stuff. And this woman made a phone call because she knew the person who was basically in charge of hiring over at this place, because she went there to get her hair done. So I went for a meeting and met this woman, and because I'd come from Morton Brown and I was like, you know, like probably just looking very kind of prim and proper, let's say, right? I walked in and she sort of said, oh, and Stu, there was like, so at that time, the juniors, like, say you had, I don't know, like 20 apprentices, right? And I mean, you know, the place was like huge. The amount of stylists, the amount of chairs, all that kind of stuff, you know, on 3 levels, right? And it was like going into a TARDIS. You know, you looked at the shop front and you would never imagine that this whole space would be going on downstairs with the washing banks and the dryer banks and the everything. And it was, again, just like, oh my God, we just walked in somewhere and that was it. It was like the sheer like excitement of what was going to happen at work today. Do you know what I mean? What was going to go on? And I think that I look at that and think about, you know, the stylists that had you know, come from places and were on their own journeys, but part of something, and like the opportunity to go on a photo shoot or travel and you know, we used to do things where it was a hair show and you were going, like, you know, you had to get a passport because you were going to Philadelphia, and it was like, you know, or you were going to go and do some like international show in Germany or something like that. But the whole aspect and energy was always about the fact that it was a team. You know, you were together. People came from different places. There was competitiveness. There was kind of like competition. you know, and it was set about the fact that actually, as an apprentice, as you were growing up through the ranks, you know, you were passing your tests or whatever, but accomplishments, right? And the thing of client return, like that whole thing of starting to realize that, okay, these clients are on the column, but they're the salon's clients, right? And then what you're growing within that salon, in that environment, are like contributors, right? Collaborators. So it's a team. So these people all garner this, they all get it, right? But also at the end of it all, like, you know, we're hairdressers at the end of the day. You still go back to the thing where sometimes you're like, well, if I'm doing all the work and the boss is making all the money, how the you know, and it goes really simple, Stu. You know what I mean? In the brain, because then you're like, oh, I could go off and do it myself, maybe somewhere else, and maybe you can, maybe that's correct, because actually finding a space, setting that business up because you have the acumen and you have the know-how, right? Also comes down to the fact that you better get your eyes open to be the fact that you now become that person, you become the fall guy, and you're in the line of fire, regardless of whatever you're thinking, and the client's always right, you know. So, and that's it. I mean, those journeys, and it's been you know what? It's been a roller coaster, Stu. It's been like bloody brilliant. Wouldn't have had it any other way, because the aspect of being able to say be at Morton Brown, be at Splinters. You know, when I left Splinters, I went to work for Richard Conway at the Ginger Group, and a dear old friend of mine, Keith Warner, who used to work at Leonard's, and then went to work for Richard as well, and then ended up buying the business. So the Ginger Group was like, you know, named after Richard's wife, who was Ginger basically. And so this whole thing was like, you know, he was the guy that lent Vidal the money to start off and stuff. And so it was this whole thing where people, you know, had brands, you had names, and it was, you know, it's like being a football team, right? Do you know what I mean? You got your jersey, you know, your Sassoons, your Tony and Guy, your Jingles, or your Burlingtons, or your whatever your brand was, you know. And that sort of happened many years later after working with like Trevor Sorby and Eugene and stuff, and like we became mates because we used to go to the same nightclubs, and then had the opportunity to do like, you know, silly things like do haircuts in the dark, Stu, with ultraviolet lights. Do you know what I mean? Hair clippers, yeah, you can have a bob. Come on, love, sit down. We'll be there. Do you know what I mean? Anyway, next, like, but that was all part of like fashion, and I think that, you know, me meeting like James the Bon, I was talking about a friend who had a place in Kensington Market, and another friend from school, their mum used to run a market stall and sell vintage Levi's and you know, like Russian kind of memorabilia and all this kind of stuff. You know, it was kind of like mid-80s, so we all thought we were kind of like fans of Trotsky and stuff. Do you know what I mean? It was like yeah, we know what's going down. Come on, CCCP sweater. It's like, you know, when my dad's going, don't know whether you should be like wearing that, son, but anyway, if it's fashion. And then, you know, the best one was you know, like your girlfriend comes around and she's got ripped jeans on, and your dad goes, oh, I've got some needle and thread in the cupboard. If you want, I could help you out with those. And you're like, Pops, can you just be quiet? You know, like, but fashion, I guess, was a big driver in you know, my attitude was pretty much like, pick up what you can, and you're kind of learning on the job effectively, but also always trying to do better. And I think that like you're providing a service, so like it's that thing where, you know, you want the best colorists, you want the best cutters, you want the best like entertainers within the environment. But you're also realizing that when we look at it from a business perspective, there is a slightly different viewpoint that, you know, as a business, when you're not on the floor every day anymore and you're running the salon, you're thinking about it, but it's about not losing that, I think, in essence, to be able to go back and plug back in with the staff, keep the team motivated, keep that kind of vibe, And it does come back down to, you know, the wonderful memories of people, you know, just having a chat with you, right? And talking about, you know, I think about like people within life that have inspired, right? But are continually inspiring. And you know, I think about it with, you know, all the people that I've ever had the experience to work with, collaborate with, from the point that, you know, it's beautiful to see like someone go and take something by the horns and make something of it. And it's also the other side where I'm a dreamer, Stu. Do you know what I mean? I've always been a dreamer. And the funny thing about it is that when the dreams are actual things, like, because it's like, oh, I dreamt about that. Do you know what I mean? And I bloody mean it. I mean, I'm like you go back and you're like, oh, that's weird. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of like, it's like you saying, like, it's a total sliding doors moment, because you're like, well, if I'd have done that, it's the same as if, like, you know, I'd scored that penalty in, like, you know, that cup final when we were 6. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of like you know, come what may, but we are we're, I guess we're the torchbearers, aren't we? In our own dreams, right? Yeah.
Good way of putting it. I think and it's important to have dreams. It's important to continually learn, as you said about learning. You never. I mean, I learn every day. I learn constantly, and
Yeah.
you know, if ever you think you are the finished article, you've really come to the end of the road.
But I think with that though, you know, there's a sense of breakdown with things, and really understanding and appreciating things, you know, where we talk about ego, or we talk about respect. You talk about kind of, you know, the things that we're talking about, that learning, wanting to learn, like sharing, teaching, and how those things, you know, have their own patterns, have their own cycles, and it's where you choose or choose not to plug in with these things. And I think that, you know, in essence, you know, we have a duty to ourselves, but also like to the future of an industry, of a way of life that it is for some of us, but it's also how it affects other areas in life. And that's where I think it's such a brilliant thing that you're doing, Stu. But I also appreciate, and kind of, I think I appreciate it from like the level where it's kind of like, you know, you get it. You're doing something from an appreciation, but also a level of self-respect that you have, right? And that compassion for mankind, right? And it's on levels where it's not a thing where I'm saying it to you because I think you are like doing something because you're trying to get the benefit from it. You know what I mean? It's selfless. And that's where it's kind of like really wonderful to kind of actually know people's motives, but when there is no motive apart from the fact of helping, you know, it's a big thing, Stu. And you know, one commends you, mate. And thanks, definitely thanks for having us on board to help out, or you know, and I feel that it's also like something that's, you know, you're a father like myself, as many are, and even when, you know, you're not a parent, right? I feel like in some senses, you know, we have charges, we have people around us that need that guidance, right? So we kind of are like that kind of figure, like we were saying about Millie earlier. Do you know what I mean? It's like feeling like someone can be very motherly towards you, but it's also quid pro quo. Do you know what I mean? It's like, you know, how you're able to give that back, and I do think that that's something that is about, you know, belief. It is about that sense of self-confidence, but being able to build that in others as well, you know, and stuff. And the moment of being able to share that or appreciate it or understand it is what makes a big difference.
And you say, like, you say about it being selfless, but you get so much from it yourself that it isn't really selfless, because, you know, like, my journey of everything I've been through and everything that I've had to change has led me to understand what makes us tick. You know,
Right. Yeah.
Recognize in other people that I've just got that empathy for experience. So, you know, when I am in a mission and I am with someone and they are maybe really in the depths of some sort of addiction and things like that, because I've been in it myself, I really understand where they are, and hopefully just give them a little bit of hope that it's possible to come out. So I never preach to anyone, you know, but I just like to say to them that, you know, I'm 14 years in, you can do it. And with all of my things going on, I go in there, I come out, mate, and I've had 2 hours of just forgetting all about my shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gratitude is the greatest antidote in the world, honestly, as you know.
Absolutely. No, but listen, like that's I think what I meant about that level of selflessness, Stu, because the thing there is that you hit it on the head with the gratitude, because it's also the fact that you're there, but you're there because you want to be there.
Oh yeah.
You're there on that journey of learning something as well. Do you know what I mean? Because you're sharing something, but the listening quality, you know, the sensitive quality, empathy, and all that stuff goes both ways. Because as you know yourself, like as I know, within situations with people, we don't know what we're going to receive sometimes in terms of those you know, meetings of the minds, those do you know what I mean? It's you don't always know, but the point here is that the thing that makes the journey like part, or it makes it part of the journey, is that navigation. You're taking on board, come as you are, you know. And I think that's an aspect of definite growth and change that you know is only something that's wonderful, really, I think.
Well, my friend, that's gone quick. That's about the hour mark.
That's it, mate. Couple of ladies hairdressers gabbing away, mate. You'd have us here for hours. You know what I mean?
About 2 minutes, but I've got a ring, Millie, actually, so I should pass on your love, because she's going to come down a mission with me on Wednesday.
Oh, brilliant!
My doorman.
Oh, nice. No, but good. Because she's I've got to speak to somebody else, because I want her to work on something with me. It's something that I'll mention it in short time, Stu, because it will be interesting for all of us. I'm thinking, and yeah, because I'll just say this: there's an aspect that it's about community. It's also about being able to kind of actually fully embrace things that I think that we're just waiting to understand how. So I'm kind of sort of like, okay, if we're going to believe in dreams and we're going to take things in a place, then there's no time like the present whilst we're sort of stuck. in places and can't move about so much. How's that with you lot right now? You've just had another tier system thrown at you, haven't you?
They're not stopping me, mate. They're not stopping me. We take one step forward and one step back, but I keep saying we keep marching forward constantly. Good. Because if they close one, we open another. You know?
Okay.
And it's all about the long-term view.
Yeah.
I'm going to do this the rest of my life. So it's all temporary. It's all moving. So there's some very difficult setbacks. We just heard about one today where we go that they've had a COVID outbreak, and so the place shut down for 2 weeks. This happens quite a lot.
Right.
So many new places that we're opening that
And when like, for instance, like, so if you've set up a mission, you've set up a hostel, and you've got that environment, basically when they do that stuff, and so there is a COVID outbreak, which, I mean, that's the thing which I think on one side, I mean, this is just from experience so far, like in going into, a studio, for instance, and you're at one of the big studios, so it's like a Universal or a Warner Brothers lot or something, and the way that they manage those kind of environments. Then you go down to a small scale and you're talking about just the salon, or you're talking about someone's home and how they've done that. But it's also about the amount of people that are going in and how these things are monitored. But when there's a way of monitoring without it feeling intrusive in some aspect, because you're also dealing with all that kind of stuff, aren't you? On levels, right?
Yeah, we make sure that, I mean, we have to have COVID forms. We do temperature guns. We've got all the things. I often feel safer in there, Johnny, than I do in a supermarket.
Right. Yeah.
These places are taking it very seriously, whereas some of the places like supermarkets
aren't. Oh yeah. Yeah. No, there's a whole level of the difference when you walk into certain environments and you sort of feel like, there's a whole COVID protocol going on, and going to other places, and it's like that thing where you often laugh because you should have the high vis vest on with like stand back on it. Do you know what I mean? Right. There's that whole level, but then it's like the other side to me going, yeah, that's not so kind of like sort of engaging, is it? This is not, and this is what we're sort of up against, is the divisiveness, right? The divisiveness that's being thrown against us.
Johnny, I've spent half my life with "fuck off" written across my forehead.
Hey, right? You've seen it around my neck, haven't you? Look, it's often there around my neck. It comes out in places, and I think that day we were doing a shoot, and one of the customers I had, one of the clients, he sort of said something. He goes, "Oh, I like your chain," and I was sort of laughing because I went, "You're not supposed to see that." I put my scarf on and tied it, and he went, "Don't worry, I know a few things. I can tell you a few stories," and that was it. You know what I mean? It's like a topic of conversation. You'd be there, and I was like, "Well, I just don't try and wear it when I've got to go to church with my mum, because then she might have something to say. But normally, she knows that kind of thing doesn't need to come out of my mouth. I don't need to say a thing, do I? Really, if it's around my neck, right?" Brilliant, mate. Bloody brilliant.
Whatever you need before, I'm there, brother. So
no, listen. Likewise, Stu. I'm fully in support. Happy to kind of actually just be involved any way, shape or form. And as I said, probably Millie's already signed me up for it anyway. So, it doesn't matter what it is. Like, we'll both be signed up for it, regardless.
For us,
exactly. Be like that. Oh, all right, lovely. Brilliant. Stuff. I was going to say, I think I mentioned to you before. Do you know Sasha Brewer?
Yeah.
All right, good. Because I know he's had a few good conversations with you.
Yeah.
Over these periods and stuff. Because he's a long-standing old mate. He used to help us do shows and stuff many years ago, and then he married another mate of mine. So I was like, oh, there you go. Look at that.
The lovely man. He came and he had a session with us at the Mission. So
right, brilliant.
So brilliant. I'm waiting to return the favour.
Okay. Yeah, well, listen, it would be nice to be able to get on a plane again, Stu, and see things going on over in a different place. It would be good. And we've just got to kind of like, I don't know, I mean, like out here, I think everyone's just sort of waiting for the vote. I think they're waiting for the election. I think they think that's going to be like, you know, life changing. And me, on the other hand, I'm just hoping that, you know, I pray every day. That's all I say to you, Stu. I give thanks and I pray every day, you know. As long as I can sort of like manage to sort of like get through a bit more homeschooling, things are going to be okay, I think.
Keep it in a day, brother.
That's it, mate. That's it, mate. That's it. Love that.
Right.
Love that. Listen, give me love to Millie, and we shall catch up, sir. Always. I'm going to text you with my size because I should have one of those I should have one of your t-shirts, shouldn't I? Millie said that to me the other day when she posted a picture of us all, and she was like, "Yeah, you're the only one not on brand." I was like, "All right, Millicent, you know."
All right, brother.
All right, lovely. Cheers, Stu. Take care, mate. Lots of love.